I'd like to share with you some of my story, a little bit about who I am, what makes me, me. I'm a keen pool and darts enthusiast. I like to play both whenever I get the chance. I like wearing baggy clothing, so I always buy a size too big. I have two amazing daughters who I love very much, and I have a performance background. So it's only natural that you'd find me on a stage in front of a room full of people. Oh, and in 2014, I experienced a critical breakdown of my mental health. It's very easy in this day and age to share with people when things are going well. Think about it. Every time you go on holiday, every time you celebrate a wedding or a birthday, what's the first thing you do? You upload your photos to Facebook. What's not so easy is talking about the not so easy things. But we're here. I have a captive audience, so let's give it a go. In early 2014, my life on paper was fantastic. I had every reason to be in a good place mentally. I was a young married man. I had a wonderful one-year-old daughter and another child on the way. I had a job that I enjoyed doing that was bringing in good money. And yet, there was something missing. I had this inexplicable emptiness within me. And I didn't know why I was feeling this way. So I did what most of us do in these situations. I ignored it. If I ignore it for long enough, it will go away, right? Then the day came. On this particular evening, I had been, as I had done for numerous evenings beforehand, self-medicating with alcohol. You see, I told myself that by drinking, I could drown out that numbness. I tried really hard, believe me, but I just couldn't shift this dull drilling sensation that was sitting heavy in the pit of my stomach. I tried harder. I drank more. That dull drilling sensation mutated into a nervous energy right there in the heart of my chest. I drank further. Now my thoughts were clouded. I couldn't focus on anything. And I don't know precisely what moment it happened, but at some point that evening, I had enough. I didn't want to do this anymore. So I set out on a late night walk, and I found myself standing in the middle of a bridge on the wrong side of the barrier. People often ask me what it's like to experience poor mental health. Now, as I said, when you don't understand something, it's so hard to put it into words, but I did come up with one analogy that seemed to make sense to a lot of people. I'd explain to them, it's almost as though an unknown entity had reached in through the back of my head and removed my brain. And just as I was getting used to this new way of life, this inability to function properly, that same entity would cram into the back of my head a compressed ball of red-hot wire wool. You know, the stuff that you scrub your pots and pans with? Well, now there was a pressure building. The steam couldn't escape. I could feel heat radiating from my face all the time. All I wanted to do was just reach in and take out even one strand of this red-hot wire wool, line it out in front of me, let it cool off, and then I could tackle it as I would tackle any thought or any task. And once I'd completed that strand, I could set it aside, reach in and take out another one. How frustrating for me that I just couldn't do that. Going back to that fateful night in 2014, luckily I saw sense. I got myself safe and I contacted the emergency services. An ambulance attended. They took me to the local hospital in Nottingham, where I was living at the time. And for the first time, I spoke to someone about how I was feeling. I shared with them what I was going through. And crucially, I asked them for help. And I'm really glad I did. Within a matter of days, I'd had an appointment with my GP and I'd received a diagnosis of depression and anxiety. That was those feelings, that inexplicable emptiness, the misery, that was depression. That dull drilling sensation, the nervous energy, that was anxiety. I finally had a name to give to these things that were happening to me. And armed with that new knowledge, I was able to plan a way forward. I was signed up to a course of cognitive behavioural therapy, or CBT. That helped wonders as well. And finally, I could move on with my life. Time drifted on. At the end of 2014, we welcomed our second daughter, another ray of sunshine in my otherwise mundane life. Into 2015, I got myself a new job, and I was able to spend more time with my family. The weeks, months, years drifted by, and still something was missing. In May of 2018, I had my second mental health breakdown. But things were different this time. You see, I knew almost straight away I needed to radically change my life before the worst happened. And so, once again, I spoke up. I shared with those around me what I was going through, and I asked for support. Unfortunately, on this occasion, the support I needed just wasn't available to me. So I made the ultimate decision. I was going to walk away from my life, from everything that I had built for myself, and start again. And that's exactly what I did. I came away from an environment that I felt no longer worked for me. And I came home, right here to my hometown of Gosport. And it was here that my parents and my brothers supported me. When I'd speak, they'd listen. When I'd share what I was feeling, they heard me. And when I asked for that all-important support, they gave it. One of the key members of my newfound support network was my teenage brother, Sean. That's him on the left. The chap on the right is Godfrey, the garden gnome. Okay. Now, Sean never pretended to understand what I was going through, but what he did do was he gave me his ear, in which I would ramble for hours on end sometimes, while I tried to verbally navigate what it was I was going through. And that's all I needed. I didn't need to feel understood. I just needed to feel like somebody had heard me. My family posed me a really important question. They said, "Jamie, what do you see your life looking like? What do you want to achieve?" I gave it a moment's thought, and my answer was simple. I had two things. Firstly, I wanted to be the best father I possibly could for my two daughters. And secondly, I wanted to help other people who were struggling. Within a few short months, I gained employment as a support worker, working with vulnerable people, an extremely rewarding and fulfilling job. And I was visiting my children regularly, as often as finances would allow, given that they now lived half a country away. Life, once again, was good. And do you know what? I'd put the work in this time. I'd reached out, I'd found that support, I'd got my appropriate audience, and they helped me. Well done me for having made the changes that I'd needed to put in place to access that better life. On the 4th of December 2021, out of nowhere, Sean died by his own hand. He was 17. Grief does strange things to people. For me, for the longest time, I was just so angry with Sean. You see, it transpired that for a number of months, Sean had been experiencing his own struggles with his mental health. So why then had he not spoken up? Why hadn't he shared with us what he was going through, and why didn't he ask for our support? After all, he'd seen firsthand how I'd experienced poor mental health, but how I'd come out the other end. What stopped him from asking for the same from me? I even had professional experience now. Eventually, and it took time, but I came to understand more, and I became more comfortable with what had happened. You never truly move on after the death of a loved one, but you do learn how to move forward. I sat down with the family and we discussed at great length what we saw our lives looking like now, what we wanted to achieve. We resolved that we wanted something positive to come out of something that was totally devastating. We didn't want to see any more Seans out there suffering alone. And so, we set up a local, peer-led mental health support group right here in our local community. And we called it Sean's Safe Space. At our weekly sessions, we invite anyone struggling with anything to come along and access the support that they need. Since we started in November 2024, I'm very proud to say we have helped scores of individuals access that all-important support. Now, we're not just about talking things through. That does help, but more importantly, we're about the what's next. Where appropriate, we will refer people to other services and organisations that can benefit them, depending on their individual circumstances. The harsh reality is that each year, 1 in 4 people will experience some form of a struggle with their mental health. Now, that's a frightening statistic, but what it does is it highlights the need for us all to be proactive with not just our own, but other people's mental health. So let me ask you this. Do you have a friend who's normally quite social? They're normally at every social gathering, but recently they've had every excuse not to attend. Drop them a message. Ask them how they're doing. And when they inevitably reply, "I'm fine," ask again. That second message could make all the difference to them. Even walking down the street, do you see somebody struggling with something? Is there anything you can offer to do to bring a little bit of light into that person's day? And let's go a step further. Personally, I would love to see more and more peer-led local community support groups being set up in every town and every city all over the world. Could you be that person to open up Caroline's Corner or Daniel's Talking Room in your local community? I'd like to end, if I can, with a short poem. I wrote this poem for Sean 2 days after he passed. And it's a very, very important poem to me. It's very personal, and I did debate whether or not I wanted to include it in my talk today. But I do think the message behind the words is a really good note to end this talk on. This poem is called A Brother's Love. You'd make the drinks when I came round. You'd comfort me without a sound. That laugh, that grin, my favourite smile. I hadn't seen you for a while. I leaned on you these past few years. You helped to chase away my tears. With open arms, you brought me home to have some fun with garden gnomes. I'll always remember the laughs we had while sat around with Mum and Dad. I just wish I'd offered you more walks. I wish I'd known. God, I wish we'd talked. But now you're gone, and I'll never know the joy of having watched you grow. And all that's left, a deep, dark hole that you once filled inside my soul. Look, the only thing of which I'm sure, in case I never said before, this brother's love is yours to keep. Now rest well, Sean. Enjoy your sleep. Please, if you need to, speak up. Share your story. Find support. I promise you won't regret it. Thank you.